Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of the Fishing Teacher, and much appreciated you guys swinging by the channel to check out today's video. And guys, got a good one for y'all today. We're going to be talking about fishing a big glide bait and a big swim bait today. At the time of filming this video, we're in the first week of November, and in my opinion, if you want to catch a big one on a glide bait or swim bait, you've never caught one before, November is one of the best months to fish it in. When that water temperature gets down in the 50s and 60s, this is the time of year that you can catch some big fish on a glide bait. There's really two windows. There's a window when the water is in the 50s and the 60s in the springtime of the year, and then there's another window, usually like in late October, maybe into early December, depending upon what part of the country you fish in, where it's the premium time of year to fish these big baits. And these are, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, these are low percentage baits. It's like you're gonna spend a lot of time fishing them without getting many bites, but when you do get bit on it, you might catch the biggest bass of your entire life. So therefore, it's sort of like, you know, if that's something that interests you, catching giant bass, this is a video for you guys. But if you're wanting to just go out and catch lots of fish, probably not the best video for you. But anyway, it's good to have it filed away in your memory bank anyway. Also, guys, before we get started, a couple quick things. Thank you for everybody that's taken time to subscribe here to the Fishing Teacher. Much appreciated. We're really trying hard to hit that 50,000 subscriber mark. We're about halfway there. Also, guys, you can become a channel member of the Fishing Teacher. That's a good way to support the channel. Just click the join button or the membership button. And finally, guys, I'll link some of my favorite big glide baits and big swim baits in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. If you guys would like to pick a couple up after the show here, Tackle Warehouse has actually got a bunch of good Black Friday sales going on. You can probably get you some good discounts on these baits if you use that link of mine in the description of the video. So appreciate that. Okay, we talk about the big glide bait and the big swim bait, you know, occasionally here on the channel. But to be honest with you guys, when I do these videos on the big swim bait and the big glide bait, they don't get a lot of traction. It's like a lot of people they've heard about it, but it's just like they're not that interested because it is a specialty technique. And when you do this, it requires a complete shift in the way that you think about bass fishing, because if you're interested in catching quality fish like bass over 4 pounds, there's probably not a better lure category than these two baits that's going to give you the best chance of catching those big fish. And when you do that, anytime that you're fishing a big bait, you're not going to get as many bites. So one of the first things that you have to do if you want to learn how to do this is you got to shift your mentality and not expect many bites. In fact, a lot of the time you got to expect maybe you're going to go out and not get any bites, or you might get 1 or 2 or 3 bites. But those 1 or 2 or 3 bites, they may be these freaking hogs like this. So that's what is the lure of this technique. So remember that. It's like there's 2 things you need to remember before we dig into this video. Number 1 is lower your expectations about getting bit, and number 2 is you're never going to be any good at a glide bait or a big swim bait if you don't commit to it and throw it all day long. It's like if you pack them up, say for example, you pack a couple big glide baits up with you and you got all your other gear in the boat with you, odds are you're going to throw it for 20 or 30 minutes and get tired of it and put it down and go pick up a shaky head or something. You can't do that if you want to learn this technique and if you want to catch big ones on it. If you're serious about it, for example, take 2 baits. Take a big swim bait, take a big glide bait, get you a big flipping stick with 25-pound test fluorocarbon line on it, and you don't have anything else in the boat. You can't do anything else because if you don't have anything else in the boat, it's going to force you to throw that sucker all day long, and that is how you get good at it. And that's how you catch fish on it, is by making that commitment, because by making that commitment, there are periods throughout the course of a day. And you don't really know what those periods are. It could be early, midday, late in the afternoon, where those fish will bite. And you got to be throwing the whole time to find out what that bite window is. So that's 2 considerations to remember with it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how you fish the bait and the areas that you want to fish it in and how you want to get set up on it. Now, first of all, depending upon the size of the bait you're fishing, the equipment's going to be really critical. If you're throwing a big bait like this Megabass iSlide here, you really need to have like an 8-foot extra heavy action rod, like that Megabass Leviathan rod. and 25 or 30 pound test line. I prefer fluorocarbon. I don't like to use braid on this. I just think 25 or 30 is about right on it. You got to have that heavy equipment to throw these baits. But if you're throwing a glide bait that weighs like 2 ounces or less, or say a swim bait that's 8 inches or shorter, you can get by with just your flipping stick. So that's the setup for it. But the two things that I want to talk about is how to work these baits, and more specifically, where you want to fish it at. Now, the swim bait, like this is the Megabass 8-inch Magdraft here. Like I said, guys, I'll link both of these in the Tackle Warehouse link. The Magdraft, one of the things about it, it's an incredible bait because you got this side-to-side head movement, you got this big wagging tail, and when you're fishing the Magdraft, here's how I like to fish the Magdraft or any other big swim bait out there. Throw it out there, and you point your rod tip straight at the bait at about the 9 o'clock position, so about level to the water right there. And then you start reeling it just straight with your rod tip pointed straight at the bait, and you reel it for 5 or 6 cranks, and then give it a fast half turn like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Now, that half turn is critical because the swim bait's going to be going along like, through the water column like that, and that half turn is going to make it dart like that. And a lot of times on these big baits like that, more than not, these big fish will follow this thing and they're looking at it. They're wary of it because it's so freaking huge, and it's going like this, and all of a sudden it just moves like that. And a lot of times that movement will get them to generate that strike. Every bite that I get on a Magdraft or a big swim bait like this with a paddle tail is like after I do that fast half turn and start reeling again, then they'll just freaking hammer it like that. So that's how you want to rig or fish the big swim bait. Now the glide bait's different because you can do the same thing. You can point your rod tip right at the bait and you can reel it, and the bait will just sort of go in an S motion like that. All the glide baits do. But you don't want to fish that. I've talked about this a little bit before. You don't want to just reel it straight in. What you want to do on a big glide bait is throw it out there, keep your rod tip low to the water, just like that, and then pop it like that. Go boom, boom, boom. Reel it a little bit, 2 or 3 cranks, boom, boom, boom. Almost like you're working a jerk bait in slow motion. So here's the way it looks when you do that. The glide bait's going to be going like this, and then you go boom, boom, boom. And then you straightens out a little bit and it starts going like that, and then you go boom, boom, boom. And by working it like with that gentle down like that, it makes that jerk bait dart to the side. And when it darts, stop it. Like it'll dart like that, then it'll glide on its own like that, almost per se like the glide bait. You jerk it to the side like that and stop it, and the momentum will get the thing going like that. And that is normally when they bite this thing. One other thing with this is a glide bait, you're going to get bass to follow the thing. Probably, let's say for example, if you fish a big glide bait and you fish it all day long in the premium conditions, and say for example, you have 5 or 6 bass that it gets their attention. What I mean by that is in clear water, you'll be working this glide bait along like this, and you'll see them swimming up behind it, and a lot of times they just turn off like that. That is typical. If you get like 1 fish out of maybe 10 that follows it to hit the bait, that's about par for the course, about 1 out of 10. That's just typical reality of glide bait fishing, unless you're fishing like some private body of water in Mexico that the fish have never seen the thing. But if you're fishing a public body of water, that's what's going to happen with it. So another thing with that is, like, as far as areas goes, number one is these baits are meant to be fished in lakes that have quality fish in it. So that's why most of the people that catch fish on glide baits and big swim baits, they live in California or Texas or maybe Florida. If you don't live in one of those 3 states, your glide bait success is going to be very inconsistent, because you got to have a good population of big ones for this technique to work really good. That's the number one thing with it. The other thing with that is a glide bait and a big swim bait, if you're going to get those fish to actually commit to it, the fish have to come up on it. So therefore, these are not good baits, these big ones like this, to throw like in shallow water where you're working them like this and the fish would have to swim up sideways to them. You got to fish these things over deeper water. That's the key to getting them to hammer it, and that's the key to catching the big ones, because big bass, there's two things about a big bass you got to remember. Number one is they want access to deep water, and number two, they need to have some type of, premium cover. So having that access to deeper water is a key element as far as catching bass on this thing. So therefore, that's why I like to fish a glide bait and a big swim bait, like on points, main lake points, secondary points that are off the bank, that have the ability for those fish to come up on it. And then also on steep banks or bluffs, out off those bluffy banks or right off those steep banks. Say, for example, I get on a bluffy bank, the water, my boat's in 15 or 20 foot of water. I'll throw it at a 45-degree angle cast to the bank, and I'll fish this thing over 10 to 15 feet of water, getting those fish to come up on the bait. Because when they come up on the bait, they can make a mistake easier. They can't get a look at it, instead of like coming from the side where they can study this entire big thing and they can see it's something fake. So that's another important factor to remember with that. And also, you have to be in the right type of day. This is a bait where you gotta have wind. It's like if you don't have wind on these big baits like this, it's gonna be very difficult to get those fish to commit to it. So your best days are gonna be those days that are overcast or maybe partly cloudy and like a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind, usually out of the south. A south or southwest or west wind will make it a lot more conducive to those fish to chase the bait and get up on it. If you have a north wind or an east wind, you might as well put these baits in your box. They're not gonna work on a north wind worth a dang. It's gonna be a south wind deal. And like I said, I prefer low light conditions and cloud. Not necessarily low light like early in the morning, but like low light with a cloudy day and some wind with it, combined with the right water visibility. The best water visibility for a big swim bait is cleaner water. So I like 3 to 6 foot of clarity. If you gave me like let me lay out the perfect scenario here. The perfect scenario for the glide bait fishing would be water temperatures 55 to 65 degrees. Number one. Number two, 4 foot of clarity. Right around 4 foot of clarity would be perfect. Number three, have some 10 to 20 mile an hour wind out of the south or south-southwest, something like that. And number four is being able to fish this thing in those areas that have access to deep water. If you have all those combinations together, you got a really good chance of catching some big fish on it. So anyway, guys, it's a specialty deal. I'm not gonna, try to, make it sound like it's something that's not. It is a lot of work to fish them, and more than not, you're not gonna catch them on it. But again, if you wanna catch a hog and have a chance to catch a 10 or 12 or 15 pound bass, this is the bait you wanna do, to fish it on. So hope it helps you guys catch the good ones, and we'll talk later.